In examining attitudes about race, class, and gender in America and how they have changed, we first have to look at the term America and what it means. Kirsten Silver Gruss writes about the term becoming synonymous with the United States. When we say America, we mean citizens of the USA, not Canada or Latin America. Gruss writes about Americans and the way that we prize freedom, but she says that it also implies a consensual understanding of shared values, not just shared passports. So what does America mean? In Sentiment, June Howard writes about sentiment being historical as well as emotional, and when structured and shared, creating movements. But when thinking about sentiment that is structured and shared in terms of America, think about the images that we conjure up. When people say it's as American as baseball and apple pie. Coca-Cola, a Coke and a smile. These are some of the images when we think about what America means. It is part of the lessons we have learned over the years that create our history. It is a history that doesn't always speak of the truth of what happened. It doesn't speak of the oppression, the racism, the policies that favored whites. It's all images that conjure up feelings of patriotism, of an America that is about freedom and bravery. School children around the United States of America are taught about our history, and lessons often begin with the story of George Washington chopping down a cherry tree. They're followed by stories about Honest Abe, and that the Civil War was about slavery. To this day, how many truly know what the Civil War was really about? Especially after Daniel Day-Lewis won raves for his Oscar-winning portrayal of Abraham Lincoln in a film that perpetuated the structured and shared sentiment Howard wrote about. Nowhere in the film did we see Lincoln sending John Pope to crush the Sioux uprising, nor did we see Pope calling Native Americans beasts. We didn't see General Philip Sheridan talking about the only good Indian being a dead Indian. Instead, we saw Abe Lincoln concerned about the courts overturning the Emancipation Proclamation. David Kazanjian wrote about the word colonial, and that in its Latin root it meant conquered territories, and how in America we have assigned new meaning. In his essay, Colonial, our history lessons were called a myth. Colonists did not desire subjects. That part was true. But we have never been a country about equality, at least not unless you were white and male. In his inaugural address, George W. Bush spoke about slavery as a servant of freedom, and later explained it as a struggle against injustice. A U.S. president describing slavery as a struggle against injustice highlights what former slave William Wells Brown said when he said that slavery has never been represented and never can be represented. Walter Johnson, in his essay about slavery, wrote about it from an economic standpoint. And it highlights again the lessons about our history and what a myth they are. It took the best-selling book Roots by Alex Haley becoming a miniseries on television for the true horror of slavery to really be shown to Americans. It wasn't in the history books or in schools across the country. It took the entertainment industry deciding to make money by telling a story to get that story out to Americans. Grace Hong wrote about property, calling it more an ideology, considering the uneven actualization due to racial and gender dispossession. We saw this in the New Deal. the way that it favored whites and white males, despite poverty levels across all of socioeconomic demographics. Combined, all of the readings this semester paint a picture of an America that strives to be white and male. Whether looking at the ban on Chinese immigrants in the early 20th century, or the forced migration of American citizens of Mexican descent, or the Carlisle Indian School that taught Indians or Native Americans how to be white, it's hard not to draw parallels to the current debate over immigration and other issues that happen in today's culture. A land that said, "Give us your tired, your poor, your huddled masses," now demands that you be white and only speak English. What better way to illustrate sentiment that is structured and shared than to look at a Twitter feed after Mark Anthony sang the national anthem at a Major League Baseball All-Star game. Some of the tweets have such hateful speech in it that I won't even scroll the feed. I will just pick out certain ones to illustrate. The first one reads, "Why is some Spanish fuck singing God Bless America at an All-Star game? That's just wrong." Another reads, "Welcome to America, where God Bless America is sung at our national pastime by a Mexican." The next says, "Should an American be singing God Bless America?" Followed by, again, nothing like a Mexican singing God Bless America. Of course, here, somebody else writes, "Another disgrace, Mark Anthony singing God Bless America. Is he even an American citizen?" What these tweeters don't realize is that Mark Anthony was born in New York City. He was an American citizen, and had he been born in Puerto Rico, he would still be an American citizen. These tweets were written in 2013. So while technology has changed, it doesn't seem that the hate has changed. We have gone from signs like this to signs like this. In Kasajian's essay, we read about the history of American exceptionalism. While he is speaking about the context of colonial, he argues that it presents us as a nation that is exemplary and one to be emulated by the rest of the world. Yet, this image here is floating around social media, referencing Hillary Clinton's potential bid for the White House. Despite being an attorney, a senator, and Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton is still largely defined by her marriage and by her husband's affairs. It seems that America is not ready for a female to be president. That just shows that we have not come very far. It's almost 100 years since Margaret Sanger fought for the right for women to have control over their bodies and have access to birth control. Almost 100 years later, despite the right to vote and more personal freedom for women, we still are defining women in terms of their romantic relationships. So how far have we come? Are we a country of freedom, or are we still fighting over the same issues, just with different technology and maybe more advanced laws? At their Super Bowl last year in 2014, Coca-Cola placed an ad that celebrated diversity. Coca-Cola always enjoyed being considered an American soft drink. After their commercial that had America the Beautiful sang in different languages, social media went on fire again, calling it un-American, calling for a ban to stop drinking Coca-Cola. Colonel Allen West spoke about how the soldiers didn't fight to have America the Beautiful sang in other languages and to speak English. All of this seems to have echoes of the 1920s when we were banning Chinese and sending American-born Mexicans back to Mexico, when we put Japanese in internment camps, when we let African Americans go fight in our wars and then come home and be unable to sit at a counter with a white person, even down to Rosa Parks only being a good icon to fight segregation because she didn't curse or smoke. We have come far since then, but not far enough when these are the things that we see on social media all over a commercial during a football game.